So, hello everyone. Hello. My name is Bill Messer. I'm the Vice President for Research at the University of Toledo. And my background, I have a master's and PhD in neuroscience from the University of Rochester. I've been on the faculty here for 29 years in the College of Pharmacy, been in the Department of Medicinal and Biological Chemistry and Pharmacology. And my research background is focused on developing treatments for neurological disorders, including Alzheimer's disease. I'm happy to talk with you today. The topic for today is going to be research compliance and focusing on a little bit about ethics and a little bit about the sort of the red tape, but the things that you really have to pay attention to in order to get your work done as a graduate student. So this is my first time giving this talk to graduate students and welcoming graduate students to the University of Toledo. So definitely welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm really pleased that you're taking an interest in this talk. I think it's probably because you're interested in research, I hope. Is that another reason why you chose this talk? You're really interested in ethics? How many are really interested in ethics? Cool. Very good. So I hope I can, I'll try to be engaging. I'll try to present some excitement. I'm excited about research. I've been involved in research for, over 30 years. And it's important that you become engaged and you become excited about your research endeavors and your studies. So what I'm going to do today is introduce you to the world of research compliance. It's a critical part of what you will be doing at the University of Toledo. And I'll try to walk you through some of the key areas. We'll talk a little bit about ethics. We'll talk a little bit about compliance. Hopefully we'll get you to the point where you should be ready to at least know where to go when you run into an issue. Okay? One of the helpful websites is the Office of Research website, and you can see the URL up there. This is where you can go to get information on research activities, what's going on in terms of funding and so forth. But the two key points for you, and they're not even shown here, it's on the bottom of the page, and that relates to external funding. There may be opportunities for you to write grant proposals and get some support from, let's say, NIH or NSF, and then also research compliance or compliance issues. And those are the circles on the bottom. You'll see them when you go to the website. When you get in touch with the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs, you can go on either campus. We have offices on either campus. On the Health Science campus, that's in the Center for Creative Education, and that's adjacent to the Block Health Sciences building, where the new simulation center is. And on the main campus, we're in University Hall 2300. And you can go. There will be people there that will deal with there are grants coordinators who will help get grant proposals out the door. There are also people that can help you if you're doing behavioral human research, if you're doing animal research, if you're involved in a grant study and you need to file a conflict of interest form, and so forth. Key people to see are Rick Francis. Rick is the Director for Research and Sponsored Programs on the Health Science campus, and Brenda McKinley is the Associate Director, and she's on the main campus. And they can help you and they can direct you to the right person to contact. All right, so one of the reasons I'm here is because of what's happened elsewhere and the problems that arise when people either don't behave in an ethical manner or are out of compliance. So a couple of examples. First is Dr. Reese Roth, who was a professor at the University of Tennessee, and he ran into a number of problems with respect to export controls. He was eventually, I don't think this was a single incident. This was a series of willful ignorance or ignoring export control laws, and eventually he was sentenced to 4 years in prison for violating these export control laws. I'll talk a little bit about these export control laws and what you have to watch out for so you can avoid becoming like him, okay? Yes?
Maybe you were trying to answer this. I was just wondering if there's export violations that actually have something to do with this research or this
Oh, yes, absolutely. It was related to his research, but moreover, so he was working in an area that was sensitive. So he was working on things that could be used for manufacturing weapons and that sort of thing. Probably dual use for peaceful means, but also potentially for for weapons. And because he was doing that kind of research, he was subject to these export control laws. And you probably will know that. You might, and we'll get into it in a little bit. But in his case, he knew it and he was ignoring it. And he was saying, I'm above the law and I can get away with this. And someone decided he couldn't. All right. Another instance was in 2009, a graduate student at Louisiana State University was found guilty of falsifying data in their doctoral dissertation and in 3 publications, probably that arose from the doctoral dissertation. So his degree was revoked, and then he was banned from receiving federal funding for 2 years. Now, revoking a degree is one thing, and you're thinking, well, 2 years you can't get federal funding. That seems light. Well, actually, it's really difficult to get another job once your degree has been revoked and once you've been, identified as someone who's fabricated data. Nobody will want you around. So, yeah, question here.
Did you want to get a doctorate? He's Dr. Ryan?
Well, he had a doctorate, and that was revoked. So, yeah. He was Dr. Ryan for a short period of time. Okay? All right. So I bring this up because I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want you, I don't know you guys, but you are at the University of Toledo, so you're part of my family now. I want you guys to be successful. I want you to have a great experience at the university. I want you to do great things. As a faculty member, I depend on graduate students to do the work, working with me in my lab. They need to be successful, but in order for my students to be successful, they have to, know what to do, know what regulations to follow, and help keep me out of trouble. And I need to help them keep out of trouble. So it's really important to pay attention to these things up front. Also, as the director or the vice president of research, I'm the person that gets involved when there's an issue of research compliance. So if there's a problem, either your mentor is in trouble or you are in trouble, it's going to come to me. And I don't want to see that. That's the worst part of my job, is dealing with issues of scientific misconduct. And we want to solve those problems before they become real problems. And if you see an issue, you think that somebody might be doing something that's a little bit over the line, come and talk to us or send an anonymous note. You can just drop a note into the mailbox and send it to us, and we can look into it and hopefully solve the problem and say, you're really doing something that we don't think you should be doing. We'll try to deal with that, hopefully, before it becomes an issue, before somebody breaks the law or goes too far outside the law that we can't recover. Okay? We don't want to be in the news. We don't want to be in the Toledo Blade. We don't want to be in the New York Times. We don't want to be in Science Magazine. But those things do happen, and we will make sure that we protect the reputation of the university. All right, so today, you're going to see this slide a few times with different things circled. I'm going to break it up into basically 2 parts. The first will be covering research ethics, and we're just going to talk a little bit about this, and I might take a question or 2 about it, and then we'll go into research compliance. And research ethics really covers those areas that have to do with how we interact with each other, okay? So it deals with things like data management. How do I collect the data? How do I record the data? That I record the data. You should record the data. If you're in a lab, make sure you write it down in your lab notebook. All right? If you didn't write it down, you don't have a record of it, it never happened. All right? And how can you go ahead and publish something that never happened? And you need to publish, right? Publish or perish. You need to be able to report results, and so you need to manage that data well. You all were in the session with Dr. Bjorkman, who talked about choosing a mentor. Your relationship with your mentor will be the most important relationship. I came to the University of Toledo because my mentor moved to the University of Toledo, and there was a position available. I followed, and I've been here ever since. Okay, so be careful what you do, how you develop your relationship with your mentor. It's a really important one, and it will last a lifetime. My mentor is my best friend. So, and publication practices. So when you are ready to publish, as if you're a student, should you be an author on the paper? I hope so, right? That's why you're here, right? So, but sometimes faculty members will be like, well, you weren't involved in the study. You might have just collected some data, but maybe you weren't involved. So how do you solve that problem? Where your expectations might differ from the mentor or your mentor or someone that you're working with.
Talk with them in the beginning.
Talk with them from the beginning and set the expectations, right? So if I work on this project, do you think I'll get a paper out of it? And if so, will I be first author, second author, last author? And don't get too uptight about where you are in the order. I never get uptight. I always like being last, okay? Because sometimes people think that just because you're last, you're the most important, right? It's a good. The first shall be last is a great mantra to follow. All right, let somebody else move you up front. All right. So, but have that expectation beforehand. Know if you're going to be involved, and maybe that'll influence your decision whether to work for that person. If you're going to get involved in a study, you want to make sure you're going to get something out of it, a publication, if you're successful, right? But who else is going to be involved, Or if you're, the lead author on a paper, who else should be included? Maybe a research technician in the lab? Maybe, if they collected the data, if they made an intellectual contribution. Okay, these are all important issues, and there are probably no real right or wrong answers to them. It depends on styles, disciplines, interactions, and so forth. It shouldn't depend on personalities or things like that, but define those things up front. You can take care of a lot of problems. Peer review, when you submit a grant proposal, somebody's going to review that proposal. We hope they're going to do it confidentially. We hope they're going to do it in an unbiased manner. And, eventually you may do the same thing. And you should be, treating that information as confidential. You should not be stealing other people's data just because they put it in a grant proposal. They haven't published it yet, but that's their data, and it's inappropriate for you to take their ideas and then go back to your lab and do the experiment and then publish it as if it was your own idea. Okay? These are really important points. And they all have to do with research ethics. Collaborative science, how do you work together? If somebody sends you something, like let's say it's a mouse model that you want to work with, they send you some mice that you can start a colony to work on that model for a disease or something. Well, that's their technology. And we have technology transfer people that can help put agreements in place that allow us to receive that kind of technology and then work with that technology. But the original, the mice, really, they were generated by another institution. There needs to be an agreement in place to cover that. All right? Any questions on research ethics? We'll get into research compliance in a moment, but just one of the resources that we have available here at the university is a program called City Program, and it provides training courses in the areas of research, compliance, and ethical conduct of research. And we recommend that you take these classes. You may be taking them as part of a course that you take, or if you're involved in a grant and you're put on a training grant, or you're going to be involved in a faculty member's work and you're going to be listed on their grant, you'll have to take that. It's a requirement for funding from NSF or NIH. So you can see the website there, www.cityprogram.org, and that's available on our website. And this will get you, some scenarios, some more information about the responsible conduct of research, and it'll provide some of that ethical context for why we do certain things. And you'll see, we'll go through City Program because it covers the big picture, and it also drills down into specifics for the other kinds of topics we'll talk about. So that's what the website looks like. You can log on through your institution, or you can create an account, and that account will go with you. So if you do something here at the University of Toledo, and you take the ethical conduct of research module, on city program, and then you move to another university, that information goes with you. So you've already, let's say you go on, you complete your master's, you go to a PhD program, and they say, well, you got to take this program. I've already taken it at the University of Toledo. Maybe you need to update it or something, but it'll follow you. If you go to industry, if you go to an academic environment, it'll all be there for you. So get used to that because you'll probably see it more than once. Next area I'll talk about is research compliance. We'll cover each of these topics: human subjects, animal welfare, environmental safety, and then we'll get into some other things about research misconduct, things that we've just talked about a little bit already. But the first area will be human subjects. And let me just point it out at the beginning. So students have to be named on protocols, on approved protocols for research that involves each of these areas. So human subjects, animal research, environmental safety, which includes chemical, radiation, and biohazards. And let me see if it's in the next one. Hang on. Right here. Here's I think it's Graduate Research Advisory Committee Approval and Assurances form. And this form, you'll fill it out. And you'll need to do this as you get started with your research, all right? So there's a place for your date, your name, your program, and so forth. And then all of these assurances come in over here. And so, is there human subject research involved? If so, then check that box, and then you've got to indicate that you've had your research training in that area, if there's human subjects. The same with animals, radiation, biohazardous substances, cadaveric tissues, and so forth. And don't wait until 2 weeks before your master's or your doctoral dissertation before you fill this out, because chances are that's too late. If we can't, our IRB, Institutional Review Board, can't approve work on human subjects or involving human subjects that's already been done. They only can do it proactively. So if you've done a study and it hasn't been approved, that's too bad. You're going to have to do it all over again if you want to publish it. Journals will not accept that work unless it's been approved. So get that permission up front rather than waiting until the end. Yeah? You're at what page? Education? Maybe. Okay, let me back up. So, all right, so on human subjects, here's the answer, I hope, to your question. So the definition of human subjects refers to living individuals, and there's a separate thing if there's a cadaver that you're working on, but to living individuals about whom an investigator conducting research obtains either data through an intervention or an interaction with the individual, or identifiable private information, like public health records or something like that. All right? So if you're in education and you plan to work with a group of students and you're going to test whether your new method of teaching helps improve scores, does that fall in? Yeah, it does, because you're going to do an intervention and you're probably going to interact as well. And you might have identifiable private information because you're going to have the name of the student and so forth, right? So if your study involves human subjects, then you have to have research protocols reviewed and approved by the Institutional Review Board. Again, that comes from the Office of Research. You should be able to go to the Office of Research, either in University Hall or to the Health Science Campus, and walk in the door and say, I think I might have to do a study. Who do I talk to? And in that office, Michelle Shai, who handles this social, behavioral, and educational IRB, will talk with you, get you a protocol form, and you can file that. As soon as you have an idea about the study that you want to do, okay? So don't wait until you're ready to do the study. It'll take probably a month or two to write the protocol. It will take another month or so for the IRB coordinators to look at the study and see how does this fit, where does it go, and then for the IRB to review it. And it could be exempt from review. It could be, that the intervention is not risky and it's no problem to do, and they'll decide that and they'll say, well, this doesn't need a full review. This can go ahead and get done, but they need to review it anyways. So give yourself several months before you plan to do your study. Questions on that? Other comments? All right. So anything involving human subjects, and again, there's human subjects research training that you have to go through in order to conduct that research. All right. So that's all part of it. Do this training, and then fill out the forms. The forms we're working on an online submission process so that those can be submitted online, tracked online, and reviewed online. So hopefully, relatively painless. Yes.
Research already when you were undergraduate, you did the training. Does it carry over?
It should. If you did it through city program, yes, it will.
So there's no two different levels for undergraduate?
No. If you've been trained, you should be all set. Yeah. Should be. Don't come back after me if I'm wrong. But I think you should be okay. Other questions? All right. So I showed you that form. If you're doing research that involves animals, how many are in the biological sciences or something along those lines? Maybe you work with a rat or a mouse or zebrafish or something like that. If you're doing research that involves live vertebrate animals, then for either research or research training or biological testing, which could be lab testing, doing a study in a lab, could be behavioral testing where you run them in a maze or something like that. It could be collecting animals in the wild, right? You're collecting animals, doing some observation on them, and then releasing. Or it could be even observing them in the field, all right? All of these types of studies, will have to have a protocol that will be reviewed and approved by the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee, the IACUC. All right? And again, the training is available online at the city program website. And that has to be done before you initiate the research. The last part I'll talk about for this area of compliance is environmental safety. That could be chemical safety if you're conducting chemical research, if you're in a synthesizing new molecules and you're going to be working in a hood. That could involve toxic, carcinogenic, caustic or flammable materials. You need to go through safety and health. They'll have anything involving laboratory research will involve training through safety and health. Some of these courses are available online, and some of them are available through periodic, classroom type settings. And that's important if you plan to be in a laboratory, and that's run by Safety and Health. For biosafety, this involves recombinant DNA or microorganisms that might represent a biohazard. If you want to work with cholera microorganisms, then you need to get cleared for that. And that study needs to be cleared on an individual basis. And we have an institutional biosafety committee that will review those studies and approve them. And then radiation safety, anything involving radiation, radioisotopes, or something that can generate radiation, like electron microscopes and so forth, that gets reviewed and approved by the Radiation Safety Committee. And you won't be able to purchase radioactivity until you follow through with the protocols and so forth for that organization. Any questions on any of these? All right, so show of hands. How many of you think you might have to do one of these in your research? Put them up there high. Okay, so, most of you. How many think you probably won't be? Probably not, and that's okay too. But at least you're aware of where those might come in, okay? Next section I want to go to is back on research compliance. And I want to cover the areas of research misconduct, conflict of interest, and commitment and export control laws. We'll get back to some of those questions we had before. So for ethical conduct of research, it goes back to what we talked about a little bit before. It's treating other people with respect, treating data with respect, and communicating effectively about the data, recording data and accurately and so forth, and then working well with other people. All right? But sometimes we run into problems when the work that we're doing might might have some application or implications outside of the university. All right? And so one of the areas would be financial conflict of interest. And what this refers to is a financial relationship that could potentially compromise the impartiality of a researcher. All right? So this could be something like, I synthesize a compound and patent it, and then license it to a company, and I have a that company then could be developing that compound for, like in my case, developing the drug for treatment of neurological disorders, and I might be doing studies on this drug, but there's a potential conflict of interest because the study that I do, the results might either support the development of that compound, which could make me money because I've got potential to make money off from the patent, or if the results are negative, well, that compound's not going to be of any further interest, and so I'm going to lose money off from that. So that's a case where that relationship could compromise my impartiality. All right. So is that a problem? Should be. All right. You should be worried about that. So does it prevent me from doing research? No, it shouldn't prevent me from doing research. A key is I need to disclose that. I need to let people know so that people can make informed decisions about the work that I'm doing. I might need to take special care to review data in my lab to make sure that a student who might be on it, who might be doing work that could be patented, to make sure that their work is well documented and very clear. All right. I may need to have other people look at what I'm doing in order to make sure that what I'm doing is impartial. And maybe I'm having somebody else come in to analyze the data. I might collect it, or somebody in my lab might collect it, but we'll have somebody else look at the data to make sure that it's consistent. All right? So any financial conflict of interest will have to be disclosed, and there's a financial disclosure form for every grant proposal or protocol submission by all researchers, whether it's animal research or human subject research, but we need to have these conflicts of interest filed, okay, especially for grant proposals. And as a graduate student, you may be working on a grant for a faculty member. We need to know if you have a conflict of interest. And so you'll be asked to fill those things out, all right? So you go to the that should be utoledo.edu, and fill out that form and say, I don't have any financial interests. Or if I do, then we can develop a conflict of interest management plan to either eliminate, probably not, but to manage the conflict of interest. All right? I'm going to go through rapidly here through export control because we're up against the hour. We want to get you back for the next session. So export refers to the shipment or transfer of items, information, or software outside of the U.S., or the release or sharing of that information, restricted technology or data, even within the country, all right, in the United States. So items are tangible things, equipment or hardware. Information could be models, formula, engineering designs, or even technical assistance like training or instruction. That could even be a class, a course that's offered by the University of Toledo. That would be a deemed export. And then software could be a computer program. It could even be, it could be source code or object code. Engineers probably know the difference better than I do. It could be, the actual program that, or it even could be access to, a secure system. So let's say you have a laptop, and the laptop has I'm trying to think of the right word for this, but it's got protection, right? Some kind of security protection on it. Even that security protection software could be a violation of export control laws because it is the software itself. And if you bring that outside of the country and you bring it to a country that has restricted interactions with the United States, that represents a violation of export control laws. All right? So I want you to be think very carefully about this. And These are prohibited countries. So some are sanctioned by the Department of Commerce, and you can see the list from Afghanistan, Liberia, North Korea, Syria. I think a lot of them make sense. There's a lot of tension and problems that come in between the United States and these companies. Some are subject to U.S. trade embargoes, Burma, Cuba, Iran, Syria, and so forth. Some are arms embargoed countries. Some of those same names are there, but China included, Yugoslavia, Sudan, and then state by the Department of State sanctioned countries, the Balkans, Iraq, Liberia, and so forth, the Palestinian Authority. So these are prohibited countries. If you are from one of these countries, all right, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but we do have students from these countries at the university, then you may be subject to export control laws, all right? And we need to be very careful about the kinds of projects that you can work on, all right? So if we have someone, one of our faculty members, working on a project that could have a dual use, it might be used for peaceful purposes, but also potentially for weapons purposes, then you should not be working with that faculty member if you come from one of these countries, because that could be a violation of export control laws, okay? And we want to be aware of these problems. We want to help monitor these. And we're ramping up our efforts to keep track of these kinds of issues. So, and for reasons, violations of these trade sanctions and export controls can result in criminal penalties, institutional fines of $1 million for the whole institution. We don't want that. We can't afford that. And then individual prison terms, up to 20 years per violation for the individual. And perhaps, that could be the student, that could be the investigator, the faculty member, or if we don't have these things under control as an institution, that could be me, right? So we don't want to get into that kind of problem. So please, if you think you might have one of these issues, bring it up front. Raise the question. We'll get you in touch with somebody. We can develop management plans for these kinds of things and make sure that you're not exposed to something you shouldn't be exposed to, and you're not revealing something to your country or to another country that you shouldn't be. Just to kind of summarize here, practice everything you learned in kindergarten. Share well, get along with others, tell the truth. All those things you learned in kindergarten still apply, right? All these years later, they're just as vital as you enter graduate school as they were when you entered kindergarten. Work hard and do things right. Don't take shortcuts. If the experiment is not working out, there's a reason. As Dr. Bjorkman said, talk to other people, find out what you can do, maybe to change your conditions and so forth. But if the experiment is not working, there's a reason why it's not working. And it may be that your view of reality needs to be adjusted, right? Or your mentor's view of reality needs to be adjusted. That things don't just work out the way that we thought. That's useful information. You may be actually moving into a new area. You may not understand it, but you got to work to understand it. So work hard, do things right, and especially be aware of the rules and regulations. I've shown you a number of them today. Be aware of those and get in touch with us in the Office of Research, and we can help you navigate those rules and regulations to help you get your work done. All right? Remember, if you're going to be involved in any of this research, you have to fill out the protocols. And here's the website again, just in case you need to find us. Thanks for your attention. We have maybe a minute before you have to go. Any questions before?